to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Hello, Malma Angeles. Welcome to ASEAN in Focus. We're coming to you live from Manila and Vietnam. Hello, Eliana.
Hi, Alma. I'm Eliana Faith Sebastian from EBC Vietnam Bureau, giving you the news in the dynamic ASEAN region.
On today's headlines,
That's why
President Duterte on Wednesday night rejected calls to withdraw a memorandum barring officials and employees of the executive branch from attending a series of Senate Blue Ribbon Committee probes into the government's handling of COVID-19 response funds.
Southeast Asian nations are discussing whether to exclude Myanmar's junta chief from a summit due to slow progress on a plan to address turmoil after a coup in the country earlier this year, a top diplomat said Wednesday.
Over 60 spin-off enterprises from all 10 ASEAN member states joined and showcased their innovative technologies during the ASEAN Next 2021 ASEAN Summit on Spin-off Technologies held virtually on October 5th.
And significant to us.
Singapore has trialed patrol robots that blast warnings at people engaging in undesirable social behavior, adding to an arsenal of surveillance technology in the tightly controlled city-state.
First, President Duterte on Wednesday night rejected calls to withdraw a memorandum barring officials and employees of the executive branch from attending a series of Senate Blue Ribbon Committee probes into the government's handling of COVID-19 response funds. He said only the Supreme Court could decide on whether the memo is unconstitutional, as some sectors believe. Let's listen in.
That's why I want them to go to the Supreme Court. Gusto kong makita ng footage ng behavior nila during. I want it recorded in history. It's yung pangyayari sa Senate and how they behave badly. Gusto kong dalhin nila sa sa Korte Suprema. So itong nila withdraw nila yung order ko. Yung prohibiting people from the executive department from testifying. There ain't no way that I will withdraw it. You can do your worst and I will do mine. Kayo ang nag-umpisa nito. So, it goes to show that you have forgotten. Nakalimutan ninyo ang purpose ninyo sa trabaho ninyo sa buhay. At hindi ko tatanggapin yan. At huwag ninyo akong tataktakutin yung mga tao ko kasi ang pinakamalayo ninyo sa totoo lang i-contempt ninyo. You cite them in contempt of the Senate.
At ang sabi ng Korte Suprema, kung ang investigasyon ay in aid of its oversight function, na siguraduhin ang taong bayan ay nagagasta ng tama, hindi po pwedeng pilitin ang mga kahit sino na umapir dahil ito po ay mere invitation. Pero ang tanong, kapag ang mga gabinete, dahil sila po ay alter ego ng presidente, ay pinagbawalan na ng kanilang presidente na dumalo, Ang tanong po ay po pwede bang ma-cite in contempt ng Senado ang ating mga gabinete? Sinagot na po yan ng ating Korte Suprema. Ito po ay sa kaso ng Neri versus Senate Blue Ribbon Committee. At kung papayagan niyo po, nais ko lang pong basahin mismo kung anong sinabi ng Korte Suprema sa puntong ito. Sa issue na kapag pinagbawalan ng Presidente ang kanyang mga kalihim, po pwede bang i-cite in contempt ang mga miyembro ng gabinete? Ito po ang sabi ng ating Korte Suprema. As we have stressed before, petitioner is not an unwilling witness, and contrary to the assertion of respondent committees, petitioner did not assume that they no longer had any other questions for him. He repeatedly manifested his willingness to attend subsequent hearings and respond to new matters. His only request that he be furnished a copy of the new questions in advance to him to enable him to adequately prepare as a resource person. He did not attend the November 20, 2007 hearing because Executive Secretary Ermita requested respondent committees to dispense with his testimony on the ground of executive privilege. Note that petitioner is an executive official under the direct control and supervision of the chief executive. Why punish petitioner for contempt when he was merely directed by his superior? So ito pong desisyon ng Korte Suprema ay malinaw pa sa sikat ng araw na kung nagkaroon po ng pag-utos ang Presidente sa kanyang mga alter egos, ng mga miyembro ng gabinete, at hindi na po dumalo sa paghihiring ng Senado, hindi po sila po pwedeng ma-cite in contempt dahil obligasyon po ng mga miyembro ng gabinete na sumunod sa utos ng kanilang Presidente.
Indonesia prepares for Bali reopening. December Paras, our EBC correspondent from Jakarta, Indonesia, joins us live. Hello, December.
Hello, Eliana. That's correct. The operator of Gusti Ngurah Rai International Airport in Bali has made some preparations ahead of the planned opening of international flights on October 14, 2021. We have prepared everything, especially regarding the implementation of health protocols for the passengers, said Taufan Yudhistira, the stakeholder relations manager of state-owned airport operator Angkasa Pura at the Gusti Ngurah Rai International Airport branch office on Tuesday. Furthermore, he informed that his office has set up thermal scanners at the arrival terminal, prepared checkpoint counters for port health office officers, and provided 28 computers to support the passengers' documentation and data collection process. In addition, 20 COVID-19 PCR test booths have been prepared along with 10 tools to examine the passengers. The test will be conducted by Bali Jimbaran Hospital officers. The management of Ngurah Rai Airport will complete the preparations as soon as possible before the international flights at the airport are officially reopened. Indonesia will reopen the resort island of Bali to selected international travelers next week after the pandemic starved the holiday hotspot of one of its primary sources of income. The island's Ngurah Rai International Airport will be open to international travelers from South Korea, China, Japan, the United Arab Emirates, Dubai, and New Zealand as of October 14. Maritime and Investment Minister Luhut Panjaitan told a press conference. The partial reopening, however, does not include Australia, a key source of tourists before the pandemic. Panjaitan said Ngurah Rai Airport in Bali will open internationally on 14 October 2021 as long as it meets the provisions and requirements regarding quarantine, COVID-19 tests, and readiness of the task force. He did not elaborate if tourists will be eligible to visit the island or if only those with a residence permit could come. All international travelers will be required to have proof of hotel booked for a quarantine of at least 8 days at their own expense. But it remains unclear what other restrictions may apply beyond that. Indonesia was devastated by the highly contagious Delta variant of the virus in mid-July, where it recorded over 56,000 new COVID cases in just one day. The government announced emergency restrictions in the hardest hit area, shutting down non-essential businesses and limiting people's movement. Bali's tourism-dependent economy was also hit hard by the pandemic as millions of visitors disappeared from the Palm Fringe Island. But case numbers are now falling as the government ramps up vaccinations. Authorities have begun a steady easing of restrictions as the country sees a decrease in daily confirmed COVID cases and deaths, including Bali. Malls, movie theaters, and offices in most cities have begun to reopen at reduced capacity, and some schools have begun partial offline learning. Back to you, Eliana.
Thank you, December, for your updates. You stay safe and healthy.
Thank you to Eliana. Stay safe. Reporting from Jakarta, Indonesia, this is December Paras, and we live in interesting times.
Meanwhile, the Food and Drug Administration Director General Eric Domingo on Wednesday said 4 hospitals have been granted compassionate special permit as of Tuesday for antiviral drug molnupiravir, believed to be effective against the COVID-19. Now, in a televised Laging Handa briefing, Domingo said the Philippines is included in the multi-country clinical trial of the molnupiravir. Take a look.
I-apply ng compassionate special permit dito sa atin sa Pilipinas. So yung multi-country yung yung clinical trial ng molnupiravir kasama na rin dito sa Pilipinas. At yung nakita nila sa interim analysis nila is that it can prevent possibly 50% of people going into severe COVID and dying from COVID. So may maganda. At bagamat hindi pa sila nag-a-apply ng EUA dito sa atin or kahit sa ibang bansa, mag-a-apply na daw sila sa US FDA very soon. Pero kahit wala pa yon, as an investigational drug, USECRACI, ito ay maaari na pong i-apply ng compassionate special permit dito sa atin sa Pilipinas. And in fact, as of yesterday, may 4 na hospital na nag-grant ng compassionate special permit for this drug ng FDA. At yun nga, katulad na sinabi ko sa inyo, kapag naman po nag-apply sila, mabilis naman po yung na-actionan ng FDA. Opo, kailangan pa rin po nilang ituloy yung kanilang clinical trial. Kasi yung EUA, binibigay po yan based on interim, or ibig sabihin parang early partial results ng clinical trial. So kailangan i-complete po yung clinical trial para in the end, makakuha po sila ng full registration or certificate of product registration at maaari na po siyang i-market sa mga butika at saka sa mga retail outlets.
Was developed by American company, which explained it is likely to be effective against all known coronavirus variants, as it doesn't target the spike protein of the virus that differentiates the variants. The pharmaceutical company has not applied for the emergency use authorization in the country, but it is soon to apply for one in the U.S.
Senators have chastised Trade and Industry Secretary Ramon Lopez for allegedly failing to protect local manufacturers of personal protective equipment, or PPEs, that he had prodded to ramp up production at the start of the pandemic in 2020. Senate Minority Leader Frank Drilon took the occasion to rebuke Lopez for encouraging local manufacturers like EMS Components to retrofit their operations, with some spending millions for such in order to produce PPEs on the expectation the government will buy huge volumes of the products, which were then in short supply worldwide as most countries race to deal with the spreading contagion.
To recall, yung PSDBM of presyo to 235. Can you imagine from 13 pesos, which is already one half of what was being purchased from Pharmaly? They refused, PSDBM refused to take further orders after 25.8 million mass delivered. The rest, 74 million, was only sold for 235. Nalugi po itong EMS, which followed your advice, Mr. Secretary. Why did this happen?
So, thank you, Mr. Chairman and Your Honors. Tama ho yun, we talked to a lot of former garments or steel garments companies and mga electronics as the major exporters habang humina yung export nila. And para mag-repurpose because again, following our drive to increase domestic capacity, dahil wala tayong supply niyan, we wanted to have our own production and not rely on imports. And they did, marami hong sumama sa programa natin, na repurposing program. Ngayon po, after naman nakadevelop sila, kami naman po, we all just introduced them to DOH and of course to PSDBM. Hindi na ho kami part kasi nung, we're not privy already to the discussions. In fact, ang iba hong inintroduce din namin sila even to mga local hospitals basta may market sila. First, ang task kasi namin to encourage them to produce. Sa trying to recall, yung kanilang operation, I think they started sometime end of May or June. Which at the time, if again, trying to recall, medyo doon dumadami na rin yung supply. Kasi nung, I remember during the time of start ng pandemic, so in February pa, even before March, February pa, hanapan talaga ng mask buong mundo eh. I mean, wala tayong makuha na local manufacturer, even trying to source from other countries through our trade attaches. So, unfortunately, yung ibang country nga ayaw magbenta, panahan din daw nila. So, nagkahirapan. Kasi presyo ho talaga. But I think we had that problem February, March, April, and May. Pero I think towards end of May, nagkakaroon na ng paghupa, dumami na yung, nagkaroon na ng somehow ng supply, either from China, kasi I think at certain months, yung China lumuwag na in terms of marami na gumaling. So, nag-export na rin ng mask yung ibang country din. So, medyo nag-stabilize ng konti, although mataas pa rin ang presyo ng mask noon. But not as high po nung March, April, May.
Meanwhile, 2 hospitals will be added to the initial list of 6 medical facilities that will pilot the vaccination of minors aged 12 to 17. That, according to the National Task Force Against COVID-19 Chief Implementer and Vaccine Czar, Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. In a media briefing, Galvez also said St. Luke's Hospital will join the Philippine Children's Medical Center, National Children's Hospital, Philippine Heart Center, Pasig City Children's Hospital, Fed Del Mundo Medical Center, and the Philippine General Hospital, all in the National Capital Region. Take a look.
Ano po yung So ngayon po ang ginawa po natin, yung mga prioritization po natin, binago po natin ngayon. And then ang magkakaroon po tayo ng phase approach doon po sa 12 and 17. Uunahin po natin yung directive po ni Sec. Duque na po yung una muna na may comorbidities, magiging priority group A3 po. And remaining, magiging priority group C. The next slide, please. Sir, ito po ang para dahan-dahan po ang gagawin po natin para at least may kumpiyansa po yung mga ating mga magulang at saka mga guardian. Ang gagawin po natin is yung tinatawag nating phase approach. Ano po yung phase approach, Mr. President? Ang gagawin po natin is talagang sa phase 1, initial rollout natin, ito yung tinatawag natin sa Friday. Ang gagawin po natin dito parang ito yung pilot testing. Parang yung ginawa natin nung una, nung March, na kabado po tayo, dadahan-dahanin po muna natin dun sa sa ating mga hospital. Pinili po ng all expert group ng hospital dahil kasi para at least kung merong adverse effect, madali po ka natin kaagad magkaroon ng reaction. So ito po mga hospital po nito, initially 6 hospital po ang mga nandito na nagpalista. Pero ngayon lahat po ngayon ng mga hospital gusto na magpalista. Even yung yung Iloilo, even yung Cebu, gusto po nila magkaroon din ng pilot project sa kanila. So meaning yung percentage ng hesitancy natin at saka yung percentage ng acceptance, tumaas po yung acceptance natin ngayon dahil kasi nakita natin yung sinasabi ko nga po Mr. President, may kurot sa puso po yung yung mga anak dahil kasi po hindi po makaalis sa bahay at hindi rin po magkaroon ng tinatawag natin na yung kanilang mental health po hindi na napababayaan po natin. So ang po natin talaga, kung mapakanahan po natin ng mga bata, 3 po ang magiging implication niyan po, sir. One is yung face-to-face face-to-face schooling po natin at saka classes will be sustained and protected. Second, sa economy po maganda po yan kasi 29 million po ang consumers yung population ng mga bata. So tuwan-tuwa po yung mga economic sector dahil kasi meron silang additional volumes of consumers na magkakaroon po ng consumers confidence para po magkaroon po ng tinatawag sa staycation, sa restaurant, makakain po ang buong pamilya. And third po yung mental health, Mr. President. Dahil po sa sobrang na nandun lang po sila sa bahay, marami na po na mga suicidal at the same time, nakakaroon po ng mga depressions. Pupunta po kami sa hospital, ang sabi po ng mga ibang psychologists, dumadami po ang kanilang pasyente in terms of yung mental health. So ito pong vaccination po natin napaka-importante. At ito po, mga hospital po nito, lahat po kadalasan po nito, mahuhusay po ang kanilang pamamaraan sa care ng mga bata.
The Food and Drug Administration initially approved the emergency use authorization of Pfizer and Moderna vaccines for the inoculation of minors.
Thailand has introduced a 4-phase reopening plan to jumpstart its tourism sector. The CCSA's plan consists of 4 phases that take into consideration tourism revenue, geography, and COVID preventive measures. Let's listen in.
Krabi and Phang Nga province and first and second dose on. As for the timeline for the country's reopening plan, the CCSA has approved a 4-phase timeline for the country's reopening plan to revitalize the nationwide tourism industry. And as you can see on screen, we have divided that into 4 phases. Just to recap that the pilot phase began in October, the 1st of October, and this includes popular tourist resorts. The first destinations to open, as you know already, since July was Phuket, then followed by Surat Thani, Samui Island, as in July, and most recently Krabi and Phang Nga provinces in August. Now for the first phase, which would we count from the 1st of November, that would be the reopening to be extended to 10 other tourist destinations and cities, including for Bangkok, Krabi and Phang Nga province, and designated areas in provinces such as Buriram, Chiang Mai, Chonburi, including Pattaya and nearby districts, Sattahip. Come December, the reopening would include and be extended to 20 more provinces which are tourism driven. And in the third phase, which is January 2022 onwards, this reopening will extend to the last 13 border provinces. So, as you know, the CCSA has asked all concerned government agencies to prepare for this phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 reopening.
Thailand's tourism industry has been on its knees with the coronavirus pandemic and related restrictions, slashing visitor numbers from 40 million in 2019 to a mere trickle over the last 2 years. Pre-virus, the sector made up a fifth of Thailand's national income, and the travel curbs have fed into the country's worst economic performance in more than 2 decades. The kingdom launched a sandbox scheme in July, which allowed fully vaccinated travelers from countries considered low to medium risk to roam free on the popular beach island for a fortnight and then afterwards travel to the mainland without quarantine. Last week, authorities cut the required stay to a week in line with national changes to quarantine rules.
Staying in the country, Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr. said the country's vaccination program had been sterling, but more supply of the life-saving shots is needed to augment the rollout. The statement comes after Nikkei Asia ranked the Philippines last in its latest COVID-19 recovery index, which assesses 121 countries and regions on infection management, vaccine rollouts, and social mobility. National Task Force Against COVID-19 Medical Advisor Dr. Teodoro Herbosa said there is some erroneous thing in Nikkei's comparisons. Let's listen in.
They are comparing number of cases, vaccine rollout, and recovery of economy, which are all different. Kasi if you compare two countries monthly, one country can be going up in cases and the other country can be going down. So they are not comparable in terms of cases. One country could have started in December or January. We started in March. So our rollout will always be late, and if you compare at a monthly basis, we will always be behind. So it's not fair to rate us if you don't understand the whole context. Pag tinignan mo ang case fatality rate, that's the most important. We have one of the lowest, 1.48% ang case fatality rate natin. We are lower than the US, we are lower than most of the countries.
Secretary Locsin, meanwhile, in a tweet said, I assure everyone here that the critics are liars. Our rollout has been sterling, cleaner, more efficient, well-tracked, and we just need more vaccines. With the arrival of more vaccine doses, both procured and through COVAX facility, in the following days, the Philippines is expected to hit 100 million in total secured vaccine doses by the end of the month. As of October 5, the Philippines has administered 47,778,751 vaccine doses, translating to 25.37 million as first shot and 22.4 million as second dose. A total of 80,415,200 vaccine doses have arrived since February.
The United States government has completed the delivery of its donated 5.57 million Pfizer vaccine doses to help boost the Philippines' response against the COVID-19 pandemic. The U.S., through the COVAX facility, delivered in 5 separate shipments of total of 5,575,050 doses of the vaccine to Manila, Cebu, and Davao between October 1 to 6. The United States is very happy to be able to provide safe and effective vaccines, not just to Manila, but to the greater Philippines and to the central and southern part of the Philippines as well. U.S. Embassy Charge d'Affaires ad interim Heather Variava said on Thursday. These additional donations were part of the 500 million Pfizer doses the U.S. is making available for distribution globally through COVAX, an initiative to support equitable access to COVID-19 vaccines. As the largest donor to the COVAX facility, the U.S. has facilitated the delivery of more than 21.6 million jabs to the Philippines, including more than 8.8 million doses directly donated by the American people. The U.S. Embassy in Manila said it would continue to work closely with the Philippines throughout the pandemic to protect public health and support the local response against the virus.
Meanwhile, Australia announced that it will help Vietnam secure additional 3.7 million doses of COVID vaccines in the coming time. Now, earlier, Australia had committed to share 1.5 million doses with Vietnam, of which 700,000 doses have been delivered to the Southeast Asian country. The same day, Vietnamese Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh expressed sincere thanks for Australia's valuable support in his letter addressed to Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison. Speaking to Morrison over the phone on May 25, Pham thanked Australia for its commitment to grant and $40 million to support Vietnam's COVID-19 vaccine procurement. The government planned to purchase at least 150 million doses of vaccines this year for everyone aged 18 and above. To secure the vaccine supply, the country's top leaders have held dozens of phone conversations with foreign leaders and chief executive officers of vaccine producers to step up vaccine delivery as much and as soon as possible, as vaccines are key to saving lives and boosting economic recovery. As of 6:30 p.m. on October 6th, Vietnam confirmed 822,687 COVID infections, including 757,086 recovered cases and 20,098 deaths.
Vietnam jumped to 118th from 121st in the latest edition of Nikkei's COVID-19 Recovery Index, which was issued on October 6. According to the index, the Southeast Asian nation received a full score of 10 in the new vaccine subcategory, meaning it was among the top 10% of countries administering the most vaccine doses daily per capita. Although the nationwide vaccination rate has just passed 10%, over half of the population in Ho Chi Minh City has received 2 shots, a promising development for Vietnam's epicenter, which has accounted for 3/4 of the country's COVID-19 deaths. Nikkei COVID-19 Recovery Index ranks more than 120 countries and regions on infection management, vaccine rollouts, and social mobility. The higher the ranking indicates a country or region is closer to recovery with its low number of confirmed infection cases, better vaccination rates, and or less stringent social distancing measures.
ASEAN in Focus will be right back. Please stay tuned.
Sa palagay nyo? Abangan! Simula October 18, Lunes hanggang Biyernes, alas 8 hanggang alas 10 ng umaga. Mapapanood sa Net25 TV, Facebook page, and YouTube channel. Mapapakinggan din sa DZEC 1062 at Eagle FM 95.5.
Buong mundo ay naapektuhan ng COVID-19 pandemic. Mayaman at mahirap, lahat ay nagsisikap para makabangon at makabawi. Even celebrities are not exempted from lockdowns, quarantines, and other government restrictions. Many TV shows, movie productions, and even song recordings have halted. Paano ba naapektuhan ng pandemic ang kabuhayan ng ating mga kilalang celebrities? In this episode, we'll find out how 2 famous names in the entertainment industry started their own businesses. Songwriter and record producer Mr. Benny Saturno and TV personality Ms. Nene Tamayo will share their journey of entrepreneurship.
We make sure na maging parte tayo ng solusyon at maging parte tayo ng pagpapagaan ng sitwasyon.
Patatalo sa pandemic, lalaban tayo. Sabi nga, habang buhay. Sabi nga, Bawat gising, it's a blessing.
All these in this episode of Open for Business.
Communities along the Chao Phraya River were on Tuesday warned to stay on high alert for possible floods from Thursday until Sunday, when northern flood runoff is expected to reach Bangkok. Take a look. Now, according to the Bangkok Post, the water level near the Pak Klong Talat Wholesale Flower Market in Bangkok was measured at 1.9 meters above the mean sea level early Tuesday morning. The Department of Disaster Prevention and Mitigation said the floods have so far claimed 8 lives. Hydrology expert Siri Suparatit from Rangsit University said the floodwater would likely reach Bangkok around October 6th to the 10th, with a new storm expected next week, adding to the risks. The capital experiences catastrophic floods in 2011 that left a fifth of the city underwater. But experts say this year's disaster is unlikely to reach that level.
Several locations in Jakarta are expected to be submerged by 2050. Research professor of meteorology at the Aviation and Space Research Organization of the National Research and Innovation Agency, or BRIN, Eddie Hermawan, has said. In 2050, the seawater will not touch the Monas area. There will be several areas affected, but not all areas of Jakarta. He forecasts at the National Prof Talk webinar on the sinking of the Jakarta and Jakarta Northern Coastal Highway, or Pantura, access from here on Wednesday. Looking at the factor of sea level rise in 2050, he projected that the sea level will rise, but will not touch the Monas area, which means Jakarta will not drown. Based on the projected results in 2050, he said, the rise in the sea level will flood an area of approximately 160.4 square kilometers in Jakarta, or 24.3% of its total area. He said seawater will enter areas including Tanjung Priok, Pluit, Pademangan, Kapuk, and Benjaringan.
Back here in the country, the Philippine Coast Guard reported that its station in Aklan rescued 2 fishermen amid the onslaught of Tropical Depression Lani, even as the Philippine National Police ordered its commanders to prepare their respective disaster response teams in areas threatened and affected by the bad weather. Now, Vincent Cunihar and Sonny Dayaco were rescued by PCG personnel from a distressed motor bangka amid strong winds and big waves in the waters between Santa Fe, Romblon, and Nabas, Aklan. The PCG said the motor bangka left Barangay Kolong-Kolong, Ibahay, Aklan at around 4 a.m. on Sunday for a fishing venture into the waters of Sibuyan Sea. As it sailed home on Sunday, the watercraft encountered engine trouble that caused it to drift toward the vicinity waters between Santa Fe, Romblon, and Nabas, Aklan. The PCG station Aklan immediately deployed its search and rescue team upon receiving the distress call from the 2 fishermen. PNP Chief General Guillermo Eleazar directed commanders at police regional offices in Western Visayas and Mimaropa to prepare their respective disaster response teams in anticipation of the effects of Lani. The PNP is at the front line of the disaster preparedness and response, with policemen being tapped in the conduct of preemptive evacuation, search and rescue, and distribution of relief goods to the affected population. According to the State Weather Bureau, Pag-asa, Lani is expected to bring moderate to heavy rains over Western Visayas and Mimaropa, while light to moderate at times heavy.
Southeast Asian nations are discussing whether to exclude Myanmar's junta chief from a summit due to slow progress on a plan to address turmoil after a coup in the country earlier this year, a top diplomat said Wednesday. The Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, has been under pressure to address unrest in the aftermath of the military power grab in February and a subsequent crackdown on dissent. But members of the 10-nation bloc have voiced disappointment over the Myanmar's junta reluctance to abide by a 5-point plan reached by the group's leaders in April to resolve the turmoil. This includes allowing a visit by a special envoy to the country. This prompted Malaysia and other countries during a video call by ASEAN foreign ministers Monday to raise the possibility of not inviting the junta leader Min Aung Hlaing to a summit this month. I can say that we are now deeply in discussion on this matter, said Brune's second foreign minister Erywan Yusof, who was chosen as the special envoy in August after months of negotiations. What is critical is to see progress in the 5-point consensus, he told reporters in Bandar Seri Begawan, capital of Brunei, which holds ASEAN's rotating chair this year. He said Myanmar had agreed to the plan and the junta's reluctance to adhere to it was tantamount to basically backtracking. Asked if action will be taken at the summit to suspend Myanmar, everyone said this was not being discussed. Everyone said he was ready to visit Myanmar and was waiting for a program from the junta that would include his itinerary and the people he would be allowed to meet. Last Thursday, a junta spokesman said it would be difficult for the envoy to hold talks with people on trial. It was an apparent reference to pro-democracy leader Aung San Suu Kyi, who was ousted in the coup.
In other news, Thai activists on Wednesday commemorated the anniversary of a brutal student massacre, splashing fake blood and laying mock bodies at the site where security forces opened fire on students 45 years ago. The October 6, 1976 killings remain a dark chapter in Thailand's blood-spattered history, standing out for the brutality committed by authorities and royalist militias. Let's take a look.
The state, the conservative forces, the establishment want people to forget. They want to erase this chapter out of the history and pretending that this event has never occurred, that 6th October 45 years ago has never occurred. Here at this very place at Thammasat University, people died. People have been killed by state officials and state propaganda.
At least 46 protesters were shot, beaten to death, or hanged from trees when they gathered at Bangkok's Thammasat University to demonstrate against the return of a military dictator who was ousted just 3 years earlier. No one has ever been held accountable, and annual efforts to mark the day have in recent years been met with resistance from university authorities, this year being no different. Since mid-2020, a pro-democracy movement has risen up to demand the resignation of Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha, a former military chief who came to power in a 2014 coup, and for reforms to the kingdom's unassailable monarchy, a once taboo topic. The October 6 killings remain a key talking point for protest leaders who see them as a reflection of Thailand's ongoing culture of impunity for the pro-military establishment forces. Wednesday's event was initially banned, but allowed at the 11th hour to proceed, drawing a couple of hundred people, including prominent opposition figures.
The Indonesian government is committed to encouraging the use of bioaviation turbine, or the bioaviator, fuels as part of efforts to lower carbon emissions in the air transportation sector. According to Antara News, the air transportation sector currently contributes 2% of the global carbon dioxide emissions, which lead to global warming. Transportation Minister Budi Karya Sumadi said in a written statement released Wednesday. He said Indonesia has successfully conducted a trial test for palm oil-based jet fuel called Bioaviator J2.4 produced by state-owned oil and gas firm Pertamina's refinery in Cilacap, Central Java. Bioaviator J2.4 contains 2.4% biofuel made of palm kernel produced through catalyst technology. The Bioaviator J2.4 trial run was conducted on a CN-235 plane that flew from Bandung to Jakarta. He said the trial test may offer a positive momentum for Indonesia to accomplish a bioaviator trial run on a civilian aircraft immediately. He said the production of renewable energy may add to Indonesia's concrete contribution to reducing carbon emissions and preventing climate change as a result of aviation activities.
Back here in the country, Department of National Defense or DND Secretary Delfin Lorenzana thanked the Japanese government for its donation of around 46 million pesos worth of humanitarian assistance, disaster relief equipment to the Philippine Army. Take a look. I was privileged to receive this afternoon HADR equipment from Ambassador Kazuhiko Koshikawa of Japan, he said in a post on his Facebook page Wednesday night. Lorenzana said the donation consists of 4 container vans of the equipment, HADR equipment, which were turned over to the PA headquarters in Fort Bonifacio. It will eventually be given to the PA's 51st Engineering Brigade, which is based in Camp General Rigoberto J. Atienza, Quezon City. The equipment, which comprised of boats, digging, prying, and various other rescue equipment, will be given to the Army's 51st Engineering Brigade, the unit primarily tasked as the standby disaster response unit in Metro Manila and neighboring areas, according to the DND chief. These equipment are expected to contribute to saving more lives and reducing the cost and recovery time in the aftermath of calamities. In a separate statement, PA Chief Lieutenant General Andres Centino said the donation will further complement the Army's capabilities.
Over 60 spin-off enterprises from all 10 ASEAN member states joined and showcased their innovative technologies during the ASEAN Next 2021 ASEAN Summit on Spin-off Technologies held virtually on the 5th of October. The Philippine Department of Science and Technology, or DOST, through the support of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, hosted this ASEAN Next that brought together representatives from research and development institutions, academe, businesses, industry players, and governments in the ASEAN region involved in generating spin-off technologies that are readily available for adoption or commercialization. Let's take a look.
MSMEs are the lifeblood of our economy. They provide 64% of the jobs in the Philippines and contribute 40% of the GDP. Our MSMEs highly contribute to Philippine GDP growth by creating high employment. In recent years, PCCI has focused its efforts to pursue innovation as means to achieve our goal of nurturing MSMEs. We established the PCCI Innovation Center, the first of its kind in the country, where we have offered learning programs to help our MSMEs and their workforce to efficiently transition to a better and smarter business.
Promoting startup and SME are therefore important for strengthening the STI landscape in the region. At this event, I'm pleased to see major regional players in technology innovation, from research laboratories to the development of tangible business and product, forging a multi-stakeholder collaboration, including public-private partnership, is a way forward to unlock the potential of the region to innovate, increase patent registration, and spin-off. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, there is no doubt that STI and digitalization are interconnected. The former facilitate the rapid growth of digital economy in the region. The ASEAN digital transformation agenda has been promoted under various ASEAN initiatives, such as ASEAN Digital Master Plan 2025, the ASEAN Digital Integration Framework 2021-2025, and the ASEAN Comprehensive Recovery Framework. At the moment, ASEAN member states are also pushing forward the fourth industrial revolution transformation with the consolidated strategy on the 4IR for ASEAN to progress digital transformation.
ASEAN has aimed to build the foundation of prosperity, peace, and people through various platforms of initiative. ASEAN Next is one of the platforms which was initiated on the 50th anniversary of ASEAN, aims to promote collaborations and provide opportunities to share knowledge and experience on science, technology, innovation, development in Southeast Asia and dialogue partners. ASEAN Next is a set of constructive and meaningful meetings and activities in coherence with our vision of being a community of political cohesiveness, economic integration, and social responsibility. It reflects broader and wider collaborations in several extensive issues, including global challenges and people-to-people ties and connectivity.
We are living in exceptional times. The COVID-19 pandemic, climate change, shortage of natural resources, and fast digitalization are only some of the issues that societies have to tackle. Only science and innovation can help us finding solutions to the challenges of our times. But once these solutions are found, we need ways to make them part of our lives. We need to make them commercially viable. Solutions that are accessible and on the market for the benefit of all. It is our duty to ensure fair conditions for researchers and companies, especially micro and small and medium enterprises, to protect their creation processes and enable technology transfer.
ASEAN Summit on Spin-off Technologies Forum. This event is especially timely given the current COVID-19 situation the international community is facing. The COVID-19 pandemic has resulted in severe economic and social consequences which have reverberated more strongly in developing economies. The IMF estimates that the GDP growth rate of ASEAN in 2020 plummeted to minus 3.3%, which has been the lowest since the Asian financial crisis 1997-1998. MSMEs, which form the industrial backbone of the ASEAN, have been key stakeholders that have endured the impacts resulting from this pandemic. In several surveys, many ASEAN MSMEs have commented that the key challenges they face have been the decrease of sales and profits, increase in supply chain inefficiencies, and reduction in human capital to sustain business activities and continuity. Excellencies, UNIDO, as part of the international community, is mobilizing and leveraging its resources to support its member states to identify and implement tailored intervention to build back better and stronger with the integration of digital technologies within the priority sectors of our programmatic work.
And finally, in our news, Singapore has trialed patrol robots that blast warnings at people engaging in undesirable social behavior, adding to an arsenal of surveillance technology in the tightly controlled city-state. Let's take a look.
Please keep 1 meter distancing. Please keep to 5 persons per group. Please be ruler. Loitering is an offense. Please be ruler.
it's good for security perspective, so to ensure the safety in the society. So if there's anything happen, I think still got the footage to track back. Yeah.
It's another way, another means through which people feel surveilled, right? Where they feel like they might not be safe to articulate certain views or to engage in certain behaviors. I think that it all contributes to the sense people have that they need to watch what they say and what they do in Singapore to a far greater extent than they would in other countries.
Please keep 1 meter distancing. Please keep to 5 persons per group. Please park a bicycle ramp. Please keep to 5 persons per group. Please keep to 5 persons per group.
Thank you, Eliana, for keeping me company today here on ASEAN in Focus. I'll see you soon. Keep safe.
Thank you, Alma. Stay safe too. And that is the latest news in the Southeast Asian nations. Stay updated about the ASEAN region. I'm Eliana Faith Sebastian from EBC Vietnam Bureau, and we live in interesting times.
And we'll see you back tomorrow, same time, same place, here on ASEAN in Focus. I'm Alma Angeles. We live in interesting times.